Hello, Woodland students. This is Mr. Azzopardi with a new lesson for RE. The lesson is called How Do We Decide What is Right and Wrong? So can you write that title on your book or your piece of paper or whatever you have to write on? This is the first lesson in a unit which is about ethics. Ethics means the study of what's right and wrong. So we are going to look at, in this lesson, different ideas about how we decide what's right and wrong. We're going to go into more depth at certain different theories about what is right and wrong and how we know what's right and wrong in our future lessons. And then at the end, we're going to take an ethical dilemma. That means a big question about a particular situation, what's right and wrong. It's a very famous one, actually, a famous example we're going to look at. And we're going to decide, we're going to use our ethical theories to decide what would different people do in that situation and what do you think the right thing to do in that situation is. So, right and wrong is what we're talking about. Now, look, in most situations about right and wrong, everyone agrees. You know, if you say, well, if you see an innocent person walking along the road, should you punch them in the face? I hope most of you will agree, no, you shouldn't punch an innocent person in the face. Or, you know, if someone has a nice iPhone, should you take it from them? Of course, no, you shouldn't. So in most situations in life, the right thing to do, the ethical thing to do, is obvious, but that's not always the case. And we're going to look at a series of ethical dilemmas. Ethical dilemmas are situations where you have to decide what the right thing to do is, and where there's a difference of opinion among people about what's right to do. So we're going to look at a series of these ethical dilemmas, and I want you to think in each case, what would you do? And why? Why do you think this is the right thing to do? I should say these cases are very strange. In some cases, maybe a little bit disturbing. But we've not picked these strange examples for no reason. The reason we choose strange examples, and probably examples that would never happen in real life, is because these examples really help us to think about what's right and wrong. Because they're strange examples, it's more difficult to decide the right thing in some of these examples. And so it helps us to sharpen up our thinking about what's right and wrong. So let's go through the examples. No need to write anything. Just tell me, just think, what would you do and why? So imagine you're working on a railway line and you see a train coming. So you're working for the train company. You spot that a baby has fallen onto the tracks and that there is not enough time to get to the baby before the train does. So you can't save the baby. You can't stop the train. It's coming so fast you can't stop it. However, you can use the signal booth to change the tracks, change the points so that the train is on, so that the train goes onto another track. You've seen that in a train track where the train goes onto another track and it'll miss the baby. However, if you do switch the train tracks and you avoid hitting the baby, the train will then hit a homeless man who is sleeping on the other railway line. So you've got to decide what to do. What would you do in that situation? Now, usually when we're in class, lots of people try to solve this dilemma by finding some way around the problem. That means trying to find some way in which you can save both of them. I don't know. They say, well, what I would do is I would throw a brick on the track and the train would, whatever you would do, But the whole point of the dilemma is that you've got to choose between the two things. Either you save the man or you save the baby. So what would you do? Now, when we debate this in class, so I always get some ideas like this. Some people might say, oh, well, the man is older, the homeless man, so he's had a lot of his life already. The baby has the whole of its life in front of him, so you should save the baby because basically it's got more life to live. Some people in a similar thing say, well, you could save the baby because it hasn't had a chance at life yet. The man's had a chance. Yes, he'd shorten his life if he dies, but he's had a chance at living his life. Some people have said to me, well, so the baby doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't really, have a desire to be alive or not be alive. He doesn't care because it's just a baby. A tiny baby hasn't really got any, wants or anything like that. Whereas the man knows if he's going to die, knows what he's giving up. He knows what life's all about, and so he'd be sadder about it. So maybe save him. Another idea, some people have said to me, well, so the homeless man, we don't know quite why he's sleeping on the track, but he has made that decision to sleep on a train track. So in some way, it's his responsibility that he's there. Whereas the baby obviously can't make its own decisions. It somehow has fallen on the track without, it hasn't meant to do that. It hasn't got the kind of brain power to know what it's doing when it's doing stuff like that. So you might say, well, the baby's more innocent in this situation, so it should be saved. Either way, we usually have a good discussion in class about why you've chosen one or the other to save. Let's look at the next one. Imagine that you are walking down the road when a murderer comes up to you. I don't know how you know it's a murderer. Maybe he's wearing a badge that says I am a murderer. Who knows? Asking if you know where Bob lives. You do know where Bob lives, but you suspect if you tell the murderer, he will kill Bob. Oh no. What do you do? Right, so I should say this one, it's called an ethical dilemma, but most people pick the same answer. Well, I say most people. Usually we get a couple of people in the class who say, no, I would tell the murderer where Bob was, because then if the murderer finds out later that I've lied, he might come and get me. Well, that's quite a selfish answer, but still, fair enough. It's an interesting answer. But the majority of people say that you should lie in this situation because they say, well, yes, lying is generally wrong, but look, in this situation, you're lying for a good reason. You're lying to save someone's life. You don't tell the murderer where Bob is, then the murderer doesn't find Bob, and the murderer doesn't kill Bob. So that's a good thing. Now, so in a way, I think this is quite an easy one to answer. Most people would say you should lie. But the reason it's interesting to me is because one of the most famous philosophers of all time, Immanuel Kant, lived in Prussia many, many years ago, who came up with one of the most influential theories about how we decide what's right and wrong. He thought that there are certain things that you should never do, with no exceptions. And he thought one of those was lying. So someone read his book and wrote him a letter and said, well, look, if you believe that we should never lie, what about this situation? I don't think when he wrote the letter he used the name Bob, but he just said, look, imagine this situation where someone was looking for someone to kill them, and would you lie to them? According to your theory, he said to Immanuel Kant, you'd have to tell the truth. Immanuel Kant wrote a letter back saying, yes, that's right, I would tell the truth in that situation. His thinking was, you've done the right thing by telling the truth. It's the murderer. If the murderer goes to kill Bob, he's done the wrong thing. So you haven't done anything wrong in that situation. You just told the truth. Whereas the murderer did something wrong by killing Bob. No, I would disagree with that. I would say, well, you had a chance to save Bob there if you told the lie, so you could have saved him. So I disagree with Immanuel Kant, but it's interesting that one of the most famous philosophers of all time thought that you should tell the truth in that situation. Okay, next one. This is our last one for now. This one I've taken from a film, one of the Batman films. Imagine there are two boats and a supervillain. I told you they weren't very realistic. Has put a bomb on them both. He put a bomb on both boats. One boat has 100 criminals on it, and the other boat has 50 innocent people. So one's got more, but they're criminals, and the other's got less, but they're innocent. They've never done anything wrong. The supervillain has given you the detonators to the bombs and told you to choose which boat to blow up. So you've got to decide which one to blow up. You've got to decide, blow up the criminals, the innocent people. If you refuse to blow up one boat, the supervillain will blow up both boats and kill everyone. Everyone will be blown up. What do you do? Now, I told you some of these examples are a bit disturbing, right? But I think interesting all the same. Now, again, when we have this discussion, some people say, oh, it's obvious. You save the 50 innocent people because they're innocent, they've done nothing wrong. But then other people would say, hold on, the 100 people are criminals, but they may have done, that's no reason to blow them up, right? They're criminals, but they may have done a crime, a very small crime, Maybe someone's in there because they did a speeding offence, then they didn't pay their speeding, the fine you get for speeding. Well, speeding is bad, it's dangerous, but it's not the worst crime in the world. They didn't pay their fine, they get sent to prison. Suddenly they're labelled as a criminal. They're blown up for it. Well, that seems unfair. Even if they've done quite serious crimes. The justice system we have in this country is that people don't get the death penalty for their crimes. In fact, they go to prison and then they're released from prison. And then we say they've paid their time. Now they can go and live a normal life. But we're not allowing them to do that. Some people would then say, well, hold on, we'll just go for the number of people. We'll blow up the 50 innocent people and save the 100 criminals because it's just the number of people that you're saving. But then what if some of the people on the criminal boat, what if one or two of those people are really evil criminals who've done terrible crimes, maybe as bad as the supervillain himself? So this, again, it's a really tough moral dilemma, a really tough ethical dilemma, difficult to answer. It'd be interesting to see what you guys thought about that one. So, yes, these are some strange, maybe disturbing cases, but what they get to is, well, okay, when we make it, what they could make you think of is, okay, we know that there's such a thing as right and wrong. Everyone has ideas about what's right and wrong. But to answer questions like this, you really need to start thinking about, well, where do we get our ideas about right and wrong? How do we decide what's right and wrong? What is the basis of making those decisions? The ways in which people decide what's right and wrong are called sources of ethical authority. So I want you to write this in your notes. Sources of ethical authority are the things that people use to help them make decisions about what is right and wrong. Can you write that down in your notes, please? Now, usually in a lesson, what we'd do then is to then have a discussion about, what do people use? How do people decide what's right and wrong? And you can probably think of lots of different ways. You know, how you've got a sense of right and wrong. Everyone you know will have a sense of right and wrong. And we could think, well, where do those people get that sense of right and wrong from? Well, obviously we can't have that discussion in the class right now. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at 4 sources of ethical authority, and we're going to look at what they are, why some people think they're good sources, and why some people think they're bad. So in the middle of a page, it could be the page you're on now because we haven't written very much, or you might want to do the whole of the next page. Some people like to do this on a double page. It's up to you. This is what I want you to do. I want you to put in the middle of a kind of mind map or spider diagram the phrase sources of ethical authority, and we're going to look at 4: holy books, the golden rule, family and friends, and something called the conscience. Then on these slides, I'm going to go through each one of these. And for each one, I want you to explain next to it, what is it? What do I mean by that thing? Why might it be good to follow this source of authority? And then why it might not be good. You see, I've done them in different colours there. If you've got different colour pens, that'd be a good thing to do. Do one colour for what it is, another colour for why might it be good to follow that source, and a third colour for why it might not be good. Now, I'm going to go through the first one, holy books. I'm going to go through the reading, explain it all, and then we're going to come back to this slide, and I'm going to show you how I would have written that one up for my spider diagram, just in case you're not sure about what you're doing. And then with the other ones, I'll just go through the information. I want you to use the information to do that bit of writing. So you might want to pause it so that you've got the basics of the mind map written out. Source of ethical authority in the middle, holy books, golden rule, friends and family and friends, and conscience. Okay, I'm going to go into the first. So holy books, what are holy books? Holy books are books which religious people think are special. Religious people often turn to holy books like the Bible, which is a holy book for Christians, or the Quran, which is a holy book for Islam, for advice about ethics. For example, the Bible contains the 10 Commandments, which include thou shalt not kill. Just don't kill. Because of this, Christians think that killing is wrong. Now, Christians think the Bible gives them good advice about ethics because it comes from God, who knows everything. So they basically say, look, God created the world, according to them, and the things in the Bible come from God. The rules in the Bible come from God. So if God is all-knowing, he's also all-loving, as we've said, all-powerful being. If this person has given us a set of rules, they're probably a good set of rules to follow. You know, one Christian person once said to me like this, it's as if the world is a game, like a board game, and God is the person who made the game. He's also the person who wrote the instructions for the game. So if you want to play the game, you should follow the instructions. So if you want to live in the world right, you should follow how God wants you to live. However, some non-religious people say that it is not good to follow the advice in holy books because there is no proof that they really come from God. If you're an atheist and don't believe in God, then obviously, if you don't believe in God, you can't believe that the Bible's written by God or the Quran's written by God. You must think that some human being made it up, and if it was just written by a human being, why would you need to follow it? So look, here's what I would have written based on that on my spider diagram. Holy books, what are they? They are religious books such as the Bible. Why do people think they're a good source to follow? Religious people think they're a good source to follow because they come from God, who knows everything. Why might they not be a good source to follow? Atheists would say these books were just written by humans and so should not be followed. It's just what someone's made up. Okay, I'm going to go through the next 3, and then I want you to make your notes yourself. You decide yourself what you're going to write in the 3 different colours. Remember, it's what is this thing? Why would some people think it's a good thing to follow? And why would some people think it's not a good thing to follow? Okay, we're going to go for conscience next. Our conscience is the inner voice or feeling which tells us what's right and wrong. So most people have a feeling of what the right thing to do is when they are faced with an ethical choice. For example, if they found a lot of money on the floor, many people would be tempted to keep it, but would have a feeling inside that they should really hand it in to the police. So, sometimes, you got a picture, I don't know if you've seen Pinocchio, we've got a picture of Jiminy Cricket there who represents Pinocchio's conscience. And sometimes people talk about conscience as a voice inside, but they don't really mean it as a voice that you can hear talking to you. It's more of a feeling, a gut feeling maybe, of what's right and what's wrong. So many people think it's good to follow your conscience because it will stop you from being selfish and make you do the right thing. So, if you look at the money example, there's often situations where we are tempted to do one thing because it would be the more selfish thing to do. It would, in some way, make us happier. So, if you had a lot of money, found a lot of money on the floor, and you kept it, obviously it would benefit you in a certain way. But your conscience stops you from always being selfish by saying, no, some situations that's the wrong thing to do. Oh, what's the problem? Wow, other people say that you cannot always trust the conscience. Just because you feel that the right thing to do, this does not mean that you are right. In the example above, some people might say their conscience told them to keep the money. So yeah, this is a really good point, right? Some people's conscience seems to be wrong, or some people seem to follow their conscience and do the wrong thing. So can we always trust our conscience? What about people who think about the right thing to do and do what we think is the wrong thing? So does the conscience always tell you the right thing to do? That would be the problem with it. Okay, the next one is the golden rule. Some people think the best way to work out what is right and wrong is by following a special rule known as the golden rule. And you actually find this golden rule in the teachings of many religions, but also it's something that's followed by lots of non-religious people. The golden rule is that you should always treat other people in the way that you would like to be treated yourself. So, for example, it would be wrong to steal from someone because you would not want someone to steal from you. So if you don't want people to steal from you, don't steal from them. If you don't want someone to hit you, don't hit them. Many people think so why is it a good thing to follow? Many people think the golden rule is a good source of ethical authority because following it means you treat other people fairly. If we expect to be treated well, we should treat others in the same way. It makes the world fair. Now, this is quite a good rule, I think, and lots of people think it's good to follow. However, some people argue that there could be problems with the rule. For example, if one person thought it was funny when people made fun of the way he looked, according to the rule, he would be free to make fun of other people in the same way. However, other people might find this upsetting and hurtful. For example, I wear glasses. If someone made a joke about me wearing glasses, I don't care. But then if I think it's okay to make jokes about me wearing glasses, that would mean, according to the golden rule, it would be okay for me to make jokes about other people who wear glasses, but they might not like it. So sometimes the golden rule might not lead us to the right thing to do. Okay, let's look at the next one. Okay, friends and family. Many people ask their family what to do when they have to make decisions about right and wrong. Children are taught what is right and wrong by their parents, so it is natural that we sometimes go back to our family when we need to make a big decision. And when I ask people, where do we get ideas about right and wrong? Family is usually the first one people mention. Now, why is this a good thing to follow? Well, some people think it's good to get advice from friends and family because the people closest to you will be honest and helpful when they give you advice. Yes, they'll want to get you to do the right thing. However, the problem is not all families give good advice, good ethical advice. What if someone's raised by parents who are selfish, violent, commit crimes? Then they would probably not give very good advice about ethics. So, yeah, maybe for a lot of people, the advice of your friends and family would be good, but should we always follow the advice of friends and family? Well, no, not if the friends and family are not people who give good advice. So make sure you've got your notes for each one of those sources of ethical authority. If necessary, rewind the video, go and watch them again and see what you need to add to your notes. Okay, let's just look at this one example before we do our last task. Which two sources of authority are clashing here? John is a Christian. One day, he sees a homeless man with nothing to eat. He cannot afford to buy any food for the homeless man. He is poor himself and only has enough money to feed his own family. He thinks about stealing some food from a supermarket to give to the homeless man because he has a strong feeling that he must do something to help, but he is not sure if this is the right thing to do. Now it says, which two sources of ethical authority are clashing here? What do you think? Of our four sources of ethical authority, which might be clashing? Which might tell you the wrong thing? Which might be telling you different things to do here? Okay, well, the answer should have been this. It should have been that holy books and the conscience. Because holy books, the Bible says, thou shalt not steal, as well as killing. Stealing is wrong in the Bible. So here you shouldn't steal. However, his conscience, a strong feeling that he must do something to help, his conscience is telling him that he should steal and he should get money for the homeless man. So yeah, sometimes ethical authorities can clash, and he has to decide which one he wants to follow more, his conscience or what's in the holy book. Okay, last thing I want you to do is underneath where you've done your spider diagram, or on the next page, or wherever your next piece of place to write is, I want you to answer this question. Which source of ethical authority is the best one to use when you make decisions about right and wrong? So which of those four do you think is the best? I want you to give me a reason. Why do you think it's the best? So I think the best source of ethical authority is whichever of those four you think it is, and tell me your reason. Why did you pick that one out of the four? Okay, thanks guys. Thanks for all the work you're doing, and we'll be back with another lesson on ethics next time.